Natural for thoughts to draw us away from the breath. Our active, busy minds don't settle so easily. And so much of our practice is coming back to the breath and our relationship to those thoughts and distractions can easily fall into a kind of aversive feeling about thoughts, wanting them to stop, or judging our meditation. This is just adding unnecessary conflict to the mind. When we understand that thinking is just a natural function of the mind, just like breathing is a function of the lungs and the body, and we aren't so disturbed. We just see it's happening and we let go. No need to add a commentary or judgment. Just be at ease with things as they are. When we meditate in the middle of the day, quite possible, perhaps likely, that themes of the day arise in the mind, concerns or worries or plans, from the morning projecting to later in the day, these things arise in the mind. Again, perfectly natural. Nonetheless, the themes of thought can reveal aspects of our habitual thinking, our personal pet worries, or obsessions. And again, this practice helps us to learn to let go. All of this is just fodder, just the mind projecting, analyzing, creating. We'll have plenty of time to return to these concerns, particularly the practical ones. When we're not meditating, we take this time to step away, take a different perspective, on our mind, on our life. Not so much doing, just being. to get the original sound from musicians off again. If you leave that on, if you leave it off, it tends to suppress the sound of the bell. For those of you who might be trying to ring bells online. So I turn it on for the bell and then I turn it off because it tends to, if you have it off, or if you have it on, original sound for musicians, then it doesn't suppress any of the background noise. Anyway, Zoom. Mm. So, um, yeah, I thought I would just, as I said, just talk about mindfulness, um, kind of going back to the traditional teachings, the four foundations of mindfulness and the mindfulness of breathing suttas. And, I think sometimes these, um, particularly the idea of mindfulness has become so detached in some ways from the original Buddhist teachings that it can be interesting just to go back and see what more we can take from it than we might from just an ordinary sort of modern Western version of what mindfulness is. So the first, most famous teaching on it is called the Four Foundations of Mindfulness. So there are four areas of experience that the Buddha points to as beneficial for uh, paying attention to. Um, and so the first one is his body, and in the sutta, it's quite elaborate what he says about body. But to a great extent, that's a lot of what we teach in mindfulness meditation is just being aware of the body. And so things like a sweeping meditation where you pay attention to the different sensations, the mindfulness of the breath is a body meditation, a mindful walking is body meditation. And, I think, most people find that to be a great uh, orientation for their meditation because the body doesn't have thoughts in it. Certainly the body has wisdom, but it doesn't have words, and uh, by focusing on the sensations we experience through the body, we can step out of that verbal world, that mental world, and into a more sense experienced world, which then naturally and implicitly means that we are present. So I think it in a way the four foundations of mindfulness are sort of developmental in a way, in the sense of sort of following the evolution of the body and mind, and so always returning to this primal aspect of the body gives us something simple and direct and real and immediate that's not mixed up with our ideas and our beliefs and our thoughts, um, or even our emotions. It's just this as an energetic experience. And and so, I like to talk about mindfulness of the body as being aware of the energetic field, because part of mindfulness of the body is actually getting out of the idea of hands, arms, head, thinking of the body as these things, but really just how do I experience my body? You know, it's only when I look at my body that I see these parts. But when I just close my eyes and feel it, it doesn't feel like parts to me. It feels like, as I say, a field of energy, just different energies appearing, disappearing, flowing. So it's uh, a critical and sort of fundamental uh, aspect of our practice is mindfulness of the body. So then the second foundation also has this kind of primal aspect to it, which is feeling or feeling tone. And here the word feeling doesn't mean emotion. So it's a has a specific definition in Buddhist uh, teachings that we don't really have an English word for. So uh, some translators call it the affective tone or the hedonic tone. I know Vimalasar was using that term, hedonic, which is a pretty obscure language. Maybe you're familiar with it. And if the only what I hear is hedonism, which is, being really absorbed and attached to pleasure seeking. So it's not that. It's just the affective tone. It's just that everything we experience through our senses, including the sense of the mind, is either pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. And it's it's interesting. I was talking about this on Saturday night, that the Buddha made this one of the four things that we should pay attention to. So it highlights the importance of this aspect of experience. And again, this in Pali, the word is Vedana, but this feeling tone, again, is not verbal. So we can be with body and feeling tone without entering into the whole, busyness of the mind. But the particular importance of this is that the tendency that when there's a pleasant feeling tone, that we chase after that it ignites craving. When there's an unpleasant feeling tone, that we try to get away from that. So it sets off aversion. And that if there's a neutral feeling tone, we tend not to notice it. It then sets off what's like ignorance or not knowing and not paying attention. So the importance of the feeling tone is not so much the tone itself, but what gets triggered by those feeling tones. So now we're starting to watch a process, and this is a critical idea in mindfulness, that underlying all of the sort of Buddhist practice is to see cause and effect, to see the law of karma playing out, which is what cause and effect is. And so when we see that a feeling leads to a certain kind of result, certain type of action or a certain kind of thought or a certain kind of emotion, we start to see the connections. And seeing process, seeing cause and effect is the only way we can begin to reverse the cause and effect. That is, if we see how we create suffering, if we understand that, which is really at the heart of Buddhist teachings, then we can start to see how to end suffering. The third foundation is mind states. And here it's, again, very interesting. I study these suttas and investigate them, and there's many books written about mindfulness and even this particular sutta. There are several wonderful books, Venerable Analayo, Joseph Goldstein, Bhante Gunaratana, to name three. uh, and yet, there's still sort of mysteries. I know they're trying to uncover the mysteries, but one of the things that you notice is that the two things that I think in our culture we consider to be the most important mental experiences, that is thinking and emotions, neither of them is directly addressed in the sutta. So this is quite, curious, because when people give meditation instructions, as I do, we typically say, be aware when a thought arises and let it go and return to the breath. So that implies that we are being mindful of thinking. But the sutta itself doesn't quite, it points to mind states. And then it has a list of different types of mind states. So a mind state is different from a thought, right? It's more like an emotion, but it's not quite an emotion. So, there, uh, what I would say is that being asked to do is kind of step back and not get so distracted by the actual thoughts or emotions, but see kind of what I would call like the mental energy that's going on. And so he talks about the mind being contracted or uncontracted, being concentrated and being unconcentrated, having desire in the mind, having aversion in the mind, these states. Um, and one overarching theme of the four foundations of mindfulness and more broadly of Buddhism is to not see things as self, not see them as personal. So when we, when we when we are aware of thoughts and see what we're thinking, there's a very strong tendency to identify with those thoughts, to think that they are our thoughts, that that's me, I am having those thoughts. And then we quickly go into, I'm a good person or a bad person because I'm having that thought, or I'm a smart person or a dumb person because I'm having that thought, right? So there's this identification and we're starting to turn it into self. And maybe why the Buddha's not pointing to that, he's like, don't even go there. Just see that thinking is happening and see what the mental state is around it. Um, Nonetheless, this process, the body and then feeling and then mental states. And when we get to the fourth foundation, it's even less defined. And um, there isn't even really a word that any of the translators, any of the scholars I've read can land on as an effective like definition of it. So sometimes they just leave it in the Pali language as dhammas. Uh, Bhikkhu Bodhi uses the word phenomena, but even he admits that that's not a satisfactory term. But what we see, what the Buddha says, is the fourth foundation of mindfulness. You should pay attention to certain things like the the five hindrances: desire, aversion, sleepiness, restlessness, doubt. Are they arising or are they not arising? The seven factors of enlightenment, and these are the two that are kind of highlighted by Analio particularly, that and the seven factors of enlightenment are kind of the inverse of the hindrances. They're the wholesome qualities that arise as we develop. So what we might say is that when we get to the fourth foundation of mindfulness, certainly the Buddha is continuing this theme of not self, that you're just seeing what's happening. The way I think of it is you're seeing what's happening through the lens of Dharma or through the lens of the Buddhist teachings. So rather than saying, I am having a thought, I am having a feeling or my thought is this, we just see it as these impersonal energies, manifestations of impersonal qualities that are arising. So I'm sitting and I notice, oh, desire is arising, or dullness, sleepiness is arising, or I see joy is arising, or concentration is arising. So these are some of the factors of those two lists. So, all of this kind of points to uh, back to this quality of mindfulness, which is this quality of observing in a very objective way. And one of the things that I find striking about mindfulness is that it has these contrasting qualities to it. It has a quality of detachment, a kind of watching what's happening, but it also has a quality of intimacy, which is when you really connect with the physical sensations, you connect with the feeling in the body. You're really absorbed into it. And in that sense, there's no detachment at all. It's just the opposite of detachment. So this it strikes me as, sort of typically paradoxical aspects of Buddhist teachings that never really let you land somewhere. Never, because the Buddha doesn't, I would argue, he does not want you to land. He wants you to stay open, questioning, not clinging to an idea, not clinging to an experience, not even clinging to an understanding, but always asking, what is this? How can I understand this? What is happening? What are the causal factors in this arising? And certainly, he does present answers, and there are teachings that are very clearly making statements that he would like us to, take in and, I would say, believe, live by. But this principle of examination, of curiosity, of mindfulness underplays all of it. Because at the end of the day, no all answers are ideas. All answers are thoughts. And insight and practice and awakening are not thoughts, they're experiences. And that's why our practice is so grounded in experience. Our practice is experiential. It's not cognitive. It's not intellectual. And, particularly our culture, we have a very intellectual culture in the West that is, go to school, get information, execute, act on that information. And that doesn't work in this context. So it really, it's very challenging for people brought up in this intellectual culture to let go of that and just trust in the felt experience, the body, the experience of the body, observing mind states, this idea of just being rather than doing. So I hope I've confused you enough to keep you curious and exploring for yourself. And I do recommend, perhaps I should put in the books that I'm sort of referencing. One is Satipatthana, and I suspect some of you have read these by, uh, I'll say, he calls himself different things, Bhikkhu Nalio. And then there's Mindfulness, and these have subtitles, but Joseph Goldstein. And then there's uh, Bhante G's book is I know some of you know this one. It's Mindfulness in Clear English, in something English. What is it? Mindfulness in Plain English. Thank you. Mind. That's by Bhante Gunaratana. Ta-da. So if you're interested in really exploring more deeply, and I think that if you're sort of starting on this journey, start with Joseph Goldstein because he's a great storyteller and just a very good writer who you can sit down and kind of read. Analio, it's much more like, okay, I'm studying here. It's quite scholarly, and sometimes the footnotes take up more room on the page than the text. And Bhante G's book is just, it's an earlier book, and it's actually, I don't know it very well, but I know that it's very popular, and so uh, and I actually think it's helpful. Um, Aha, someone says they don't see it in the chat. Sorry. Oh, that's because she just came in, Victoria. Maybe Andy, you can grab it and grab those and stick them back in. Um, I did a project a couple years ago where I got really interested in the Anapanasati Sutta, which is sort of the sister sutta of the Four Foundations of Mindfulness. It's the Mindfulness of Breathing Sutta. And I decided I wanted to compare and contrast like the different major contemporary teachings on it. And it was really fascinating to sort of get these different teachers' views on these topics. So the point I'm trying to make is it's helpful to read different teachers, to not sort of just like follow one teacher and read that and then take that as being the whole of the teaching. Um, so we have some time left for people who want to comment, ask questions, share anything. Happy to open it up. And Andy, they can just unmute themselves. Yeah, great. And you can just unmute, or if you want to more formally raise your, uh, hand thing, you can do that. Okay, Victoria, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I just switched over from my iPhone because I don't know how to get the chat there. And anyway, thank you so much for this. I I was just riveted. I mean, I've been on this path quite a while, but it had never occurred to me until just today, with your talk, the sequence of the four foundations of mindfulness. Because I'm a total head person, and
Mhm.
still, after years, I still battle with sitting meditation, or for that matter, any posture. Uh, I just love to study. I love to read the suttas. I love all
Mhm.
the kind of like academic aspects. And so that was really profound. I'd love to hear you maybe even say a little more about that if there's time. Just the fact of the sequence of the foundations, how essentially it's left to the very last one, which makes so much sense, to have the whatever the Dhamma as the
Yeah,
foundation, and maybe how we can embody that more in our actual practice. In other words, because for a person like me, if I had been the Buddha, I would have I would have written no, I don't mean it like that.
no,
Believe
go ahead. It's fine.
I'm trying to be facetious. Um, no, I'm just my natural inclination with my personality would have been to actually reverse the order exactly.
Uh-huh,
Like
right.
I don't want to think about the body at all. I don't even want to know
It,
that I have a body. So
and
that's why
it's
I'm intrigued by this.
that's a very Western thing, and it's why many people in the West come to the Dharma through a book
Hmm.
or a talk. Whereas in the tradition, the Buddha teaches sila first, right? Morality and generosity. He doesn't even teach meditation in the beginning. So Westerners, so if you have the formula sila samadhi panya, which is the gradual path, which is morality, mind training, meditation, and wisdom, many people in the West is like, oh, it's so wise. I've read some Zen book and it's really interesting. And it's like, well, I'll try meditating. And after they meditate for a while, they realize, oh, maybe I should try to like clean up my life. Maybe the hangovers are getting in the way of my meditation. So we reverse it. So yeah, that's very common. So, but what I will say is that the four foundations of mindfulness are a more general approach to mindfulness. They aren't so much a meditation training, but their sister sutta, I don't know why I'm using that term, but it's coming out of my mouth. So the anapanasati, the mindfulness of breathing, that gives a much more like meditative training, and there's an implicit logic that's a little easier to follow.
Mhm.
So the Buddhadasa Bhikkhu has a classic book on this. Thich Nhat Hanh did two books on the Anapanasati. Bhikkhu Analayo has a book on it. But there you see that the fourth foundation is about insight, because in the Anapanasati, the what we're asked to be mindful of is impermanence, the fading away of craving, and the cessation of uh, I'll just say ego. Just say that, and so that's much more clear in terms of a process, a meditative process, than the Satipatthana. So that's I would point you to that if you because it sounds like that's what you're looking for. And in fact, the Anapanasati has become much more popular in the past decade. And Bhikkhu Analayo teaches an online course for the Barry Center for Buddhist Studies on the Mindfulness of Breathing Sutta, and people take it and they take it again. It's a fascinating sutta, and as I say, much more kind of it's got 16 steps, and you just boom, boom, boom. You can kind of well, it's not that easy. It's not easy, but the logic is much easier to follow than in the Satipatthana. The Satipatthana is, as I say, much more of a general mindfulness training than a meditation training.
Thank you.
Okay. Did I see another hand up? I thought I saw something for a moment. Well, okay,
I
Jennifer.
I can Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, okay. Go ahead, Jennifer, and then whoever that was, I can talk
Okay,
there.
I'll make this really short.
It's okay.
Yeah, this is more of maybe a grounded question or something, but with the breathing, like you say, okay, you can focus on the nostrils, focus on the
Hmm.
belly.
Yeah.
I've known that for a while, and I noticed that most of my tension is in the belly. So would it make more sense for me to really focus on the breathing in the belly, or doesn't it really matter? Because so far I've been focusing more on the nostrils, and I just thought maybe I should change.
It's, well, first of all, there isn't one that's right or wrong or
Okay.
that's better or worse. It's purely a personal, where is it easiest for you to sustain your attention?
Hmm.
You know?
Okay.
And, there is it definitely are very different things, but and it is, I would say, during any given period of meditation you should stick with one, but it's
Hmm.
okay to also like, well, mm, I don't know, I guess I should finish that sentence. It's okay to like move between the two. You don't have to like commit for the rest of your life to one. But I have to say that there's a third way of being with the breath that I occasionally talk about, which is to be with the whole of the breath, and to be with, and what I mean by that is kind of just feel your whole body and feel your body breathing.
Hmm.
And so, because the much of the body is involved in breathing. It's not just the nostrils and the belly. The whole diaphragm, you can feel the breath in your back. You can feel it in your chest, obviously. And so I often have a more open awareness where I'm kind of just aware of that whole the breath in the body. So I'm kind of aware of the body in a kind of a background sense, and then the breath more generally in the foreground. and then you get into these there there's different mind states where you can feel that like if I try to focus too narrowly on the breath, it can easily get into a kind of tension or a tightness, a contraction actually would be the best word for it, where it feels like I'm forcing it. So I only really focus really closely, and I was describing that a little bit, when my mind is settled a little bit. Because if I try to go in there, like force myself, it feels contracted. Whereas if I'm just like, oh, I'm just sitting here, and for myself, I feel my breath and I feel my the Vedana, the kind of feeling tone of my mind body state. So I keep a very open awareness most of the time in meditation, except when things settle. And things are often not settled. So I work with more of that just kind of spaciousness and just okay and just so it's the art of practice. One of the arts of practice is to move um, the to kind of tighten or expand the lens, you know,
Mhm.
and it's something that you have to practice a fair amount to discover, to sort of attune to that, to cultivate the intuition or there's the sense of, oh, what do I need right now? And to experiment with those different uh, lenses, those different aspects of being tight, very close, very narrow attention, or very open attention, and try to experiment with those and see in any given moment what's the most useful point of view. And so this is really about right effort. That's a different talk. So
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
I hope that's not confusing. Thank you,
No,
Jennifer.
no, it was really good, very helpful. Thank you.
So I think, was it Glenn? Were you the male voice that was in there?
It is. Yes. Hi,
Okay.
Kevin. Hi,
Hi.
this is Glenn. I'm looking forward to seeing you at the Berkeley Buddhist Monastery tomorrow evening.
Okay.
Uh,
Oh, wonderful.
yeah, yes, yes. You kind of gave me something to think about when you were talking about briefly craving and desire. Um, Something that I understand I have those. And uh, what you said just made me think about next level of the effects of having these desires and these cravings and how it
Yes.
really affects my most of the days that I have in this body. And then the next level was, maybe there are certain desires and cravings that are okay to have and actually achievable and things that I would like to do. And then the others are maybe not healthy uh, and cause me to be in suffering. So those are some thoughts that you gave me this afternoon.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm now typing into the chat the request about um, the recommendations on the Anapanasati. These are the three books that I recommend. One is just Mindfulness of Breathing from Venerable Analayo, then Breathe You Are Alive by Thich Nhat Hanh, and then Mindfulness with Breathing by Buddha Dasa Bhikkhu. So I know we need to wrap up, and just for you to know that there is the option to offer dana to me for the teaching today, and Andy's going to stick the my Dana information into the chat. You can always go to my website too, which is kevingriffin.net. Um,
Yeah.
but no requirement, obviously, for that. I appreciate people's attention, and this was kind of fun. So Thank you for showing up.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you everyone for
Yeah.
being here.